All right. Looks like we are about to get started. Ian, I see you. Looks like we got about 13 in here. Appreciate everybody showing up. I'm just going to start kicking it off then. So, one, thanks for joining us today, everybody. We'll have a recording about this once it's fully complete. We'll send it out to you. But for those of you who haven't caught our first one, this is a part of a new initiative that we're launching here at Leadhub. We're bringing in trusted partners and resources from our network to really just help you take the lead in different areas of the business. So whether it's marketing, operations, or like today, your team is just really what we want to focus on. So we're excited to host another one. And this time we're diving into one of the more important aspects of running a successful company, which is your people, right? And so when it comes to HR, compliance, and building a strong foundation for your team, there's really no better one to speak on it than Ian Schotanus. He's the founder of the Big Picture Consulting, which is an HR and compliance solution specifically for the trades. He works with about 250 contractors across 43 states. We're actually one of his clients, so I can personally say his insights and guidance has been a huge value to us. So without further delay, I'm going to invite Ian up to the stage. So let's give him a big round of applause that he won't be able to hear. There we go. But yeah,
sound just went screwy.
there you go. Yeah. Well, appreciate your time and you jumping on, Ian. Before we dive into the nitty gritty, you mind just giving everyone a quick overview of how the big picture consulting it began and what type of contractors you typically work with?
Absolutely. So first, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to sharing some knowledge with your friends in the trades and anybody listening. So yeah, big picture consulting. I've been working towards becoming the HR guy for over 15 years now. And I ended up getting into HR for the trades because I was fired as a technician. I disagreed with a senior technician who made more than me, and I had to fix all of his mistakes. I was a little too loud, and I yelled at him, which he was ultimately fine with, but I scared a CSR that was around the corner. And next day, I was fired. So that sucked. And I didn't want to be on that side of the HR table again in the future. So when an opportunity presented itself to get into a program that to develop this concept of HR and safety specifically for the trades, I jumped on it. And 15 years later, here I am with Big Picture Consulting. I've been in business with Big Picture for 5.5 years now, launched just before COVID struck. And it's exciting times for businesses everywhere, but I'm so glad that I was able to help so many in the trades and critical essential services operate through that time and beyond. So yeah. I faced all the challenges that contractors face today. I've dealt with family-run businesses that have gone kind of crazy because of different family members, small business issues, issues with companies that have bought out or sold to other companies, and the challenges of transitions, and just dealing with the blue-collar mindset, and which so many regulations out there are not written with HVAC, plumbing, electrical, residential service providers in mind. So there's a lot of translating that's required.
Yeah, Roger that. Well, appreciate it. And we're looking forward to kind of what you've prepared for us. So I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to get your screen shared. I'm going to kick myself off. And if anyone has any comments, feel free to put them within the comment section. Any questions? Then toward the end, we have time, Ian will go through those. So appreciate it. I'm going to kick myself off. You drive.
All right. All right, everyone. Well, we're going to just go ahead and jump right in here because I have a lot of information to share in a little bit of time. So I'm here to talk about building a winning workforce in the trades and what it takes to take the unique challenges that you face in regulations, in your team's mindset, and just business principles in general, and what it takes to bring a group of very independently minded individuals into a cohesive team. So part of this is, what does it actually mean to build a winning team? Well, the simple answer is effective communication. That's really what every challenge boils down to, is effective communication. Whether it's effectively communicating the needs of the company and what the needs of the brand is to the technicians or any line level employees, communicating what their challenges are, what opportunities they see, and suggestions on how to make things better. And then also clear communication on when there's discrepancies, how do we get everybody back on the same page and operating effectively? So that's the easy answer. The more complex answer is, well, that's why you're here, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So let's break this down just a little bit further. What is a team? Well, Webster has it defined as a number of persons associated together in work or activity. That's less than useful in my opinion. So I redefined it. This is kind of what I do as a professional insufferable know-it-all. I define a team as a group of individuals working in concert towards a common goal. So that is, if you think about a sports, putting it into a sports analogy, everybody on that team needs to be focused on winning. If you have somebody that's not focused on winning, they're not going to be successful, or there's going to be conflict within that team. If somebody's betting against them, all these things can happen, and everybody needs to be moving towards the same goal for a team to be successful. So I'm going to switch from sports to a bus because it's a nice tight package that's easy to visualize. So here we have the bus, and the outer design and decoration, that's going to be your logo. That's your marketing. It's the window coverings. It's how you're presenting the shell of your brand. The engine, the structure inside, the stability of the vehicle itself, all of those point to your business strategy, your policies, your employee handbook, your safety manual, your SOPs for dealing with individual tasks and expectations. Your passengers and the drivers, and yes, I know this is a bus, and normally a bus only has one driver, but in your business, everybody needs to be helping drive that bus. They need to be helping it move in the right direction. So everybody on board that bus is the team. They all have different roles and responsibilities, and we'll go into that a little bit more. The rules of the road, that's your regulations. That's where how everybody's driving it. If you go out of the line, you can run afoul of licensing regulations, you can run afoul of Department of Transportation, or you can cross the lines in my world of Department of Labor, and that's where lawsuits, investigations, and all sorts of problems come in. So, and then the direction that you travel, well, that is determination of whether or not you succeed or fail as a company. So if your team is winning, it's moving forward. If it's not moving as fast as you want, you need to check to see if there's people dragging you down. If you tip over on your side, you got bigger problems and you may need to restart. But we are going to be We're going to be focusing on the passengers and drivers for the rest of this presentation because we're focused on building the team. So here is a traditional or common view of a very simple organizational chart. We're all familiar with org charts. You have CEO, president, head honcho at the top, and ultimately it breaks down into different levels that tie into field workers, support team at some level, and you can have it broken down near infinite ways. But in general, it boils into these three teams: leadership, support, and field, all normally circling around the brand. So everybody's kind of in their own world. There's communication, leadership's telling everybody else what to do. That's a traditional view. What I like to do is tip it over. So if you pushed on that leadership button, you'd end up with something more like this. And this is a more realistic of a successful, effective, and sustainable team organizational chart, where everybody is focused on supporting that brand and communicating through and with the brand. Everybody, whether support, leadership, or field, nobody's actually superior to each other. As I mentioned earlier, everybody has their own roles and responsibilities in helping drive that bus. And while leadership may have positional authority over most other employees on the team, they're operating with the same core purpose: represent the brand and provide solutions to the customer. They just have specific responsibilities and, more importantly, liabilities involved in how they do their job. And that involves two-way communication with everybody on support, everybody on field, and support and field have to be in constant communication and effective communication as well. So once you understand how everybody generally relates to each other from a positional standpoint, you need to be assessing how your team is in their individual mode. So what I mean by that is, are they in the right seats? So every company has different needs, different structures, different tasks. Even different companies within the same industry may have things organized in a different way. CSR doesn't actually mean exactly the same thing from company to company. There's normally some similarities, but you could have vastly different job expectations. When you get into dispatcher or controller or office manager, even when you're talking about techs, service tech could have different meanings. You may define it as a maintenance tech. You can call a salesperson a project manager, a call-by-call manager, project support, or comfort advisor, or sales. Ultimately, it comes down to the details of what it is that you expect them to do and what their capabilities are. So for each position, you need to run through the analysis. Does the person that is sitting in that seat have effective skills and aptitudes? This is both technical, hands-on physical skills, the hard skills, as well as soft skills like communication, ability to deal with stress, ability to pivot their thinking and adapt to quickly changing situations. Do they have the necessary knowledge to be successful in that job? If not, you need to train, or you need to replace or move them to a position that they are qualified for. Do they have a desire to perform the tasks? This is a very critical point right here that is so often overlooked. So many companies, once they hit a certain level, they will promote their top technician into a leadership role, hoping that they can leverage that promotion to create a bunch of mini-me's at their same level. That would be ideal for any company, to take your top performer, put them on a copy machine, and just spit out multiples. It doesn't work that way most of the time. What makes somebody a really good technician or a really good salesperson may have nothing to do with making them a quality leader that can help continue to drive your brand, because they may not want to be a leader. They may not want to be making those decisions. They may not want responsibility for the actions of somebody that last week was a coworker and an equal. You need to make sure that especially when you're promoting, that you're promoting the right people into those roles, or else you find yourself stumbling or slipping off the road in a hurry. And then finally, understanding. So anybody in the seat has to understand what the purpose of that role is. What is the expectation? What is their ultimate purpose in being in that seat, and how does it help drive the bus? This is another area that's commonly overlooked across many teams, because it's assumed, well, you're here to be the service manager. Great. What does that actually mean? Without clear directions in how that role ties into the vision of the brand, people can go off in their own directions, and that can cause problems. So back to defining a winning team. It goes beyond financial success or work activities. Somebody can all the individuals can functionally be doing their jobs well, and the company can even be making money. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have a winning team on its own. You have a team that is succeeding, possibly despite itself. And if it's not operating as a winning team, the brand could still be at risk at any moment. One of those members could go off the rails, or they can become cancerous. They can start a lawsuit. They can, any number of things that you hear horror stories about. So with a winning team, these are some of the things that you will always find on successful and sustainable teams. Effective and meaningful communication. People are talking to each other. They have respect. They're respecting people enough to bring up questions and concerns and even complaints. And most critically, they hold each other accountable. Nobody instinctively, especially across the blue collar mindset, most people don't like to be seen as a snitch or ratting out their friends or their coworkers. If they know somebody's doing something wrong, they may mention it, or they may turn a blind eye to it, hoping that somebody else will step up and take that social or perceived hit of having to turn that person in. Nobody likes confrontation. But if they are a winning team, everybody supporting the brand, they will take that step because it's the right thing to do. And if defective or deficiencies in behavior or policies are not being addressed in real time, what you permit becomes permissible. And one person is taking that action now that should be addressed immediately, but because it's ignored by everybody else, well, the temptation becomes other people will start doing that same thing. And eventually somebody decides to try to stop it, but so much of the team has been corrupted, it's a bigger deal than it should have been from the beginning. So very important that not only leadership holding line level accountable as part of their job duties, but you need that communication happening across the team at all levels to hold each other accountable. So again, communication is key throughout the entire employee life cycle. So with recruiting is actually marketing to potential internal customers. This presentation is hosted by Leadhub, obviously marketing firm. They're very good with the reaching out to external customers. You can use a lot of those same principles in your recruiting efforts to bring people in and finding and attracting the right people who are going to represent the brand. To do that, you need to clearly communicate the reality of the position that you're trying to fill and what it takes to succeed. Give people the opportunity to go, this isn't for me out of the gate, or they enter into the pipeline, and then you're communicating through the interview process and making sure that they have the greatest odds of success as possible. During the onboarding process, I highly recommend you make a day one experience. It shouldn't just be about paperwork and plugging the cog into the system. It should be an honest welcome when somebody shows up for their first day of work. Uniform should be ready to hand them and say, why are you out of uniform? Go get changed. First order of business. Meet and greet with the team. Anybody who's available. If you can time your new hire's first day with a team meeting or an event, that's ideal. So they can meet everybody, and in proper uniform, they're part of the team. They're being introduced as part of the team. You want the end goal for a day one experience is that they are happy that they made the decision to join your team, just as much as you need to be happy that they joined your team by day 90. So communicate joy that the new hire, that anybody entering your sphere, you want them there. They went out on a limb to join you, just like you're going out on a limb to invite them in. Express the joy, communicate. Once the employee is in and you're managing them, clearly communicate expectations and also train for success. You're communicating exactly what it takes to succeed, what it means to represent the brand, what is expected in your role as you're part of representing the brand. And anything that you are having problems with along the way, you're training them how to better support the brand. Everything should be focused on that pipeline. Now, no matter how much training we do, no matter how clearly we set expectations, we're people. We're going to go off script. People are going to give in to temptation. Long history, as long as humans have been around, we've given into temptation. So when things don't go according to plan, you need to communicate with each other about perceived discrepancies. Just because you think something is wrong doesn't necessarily mean that it is, or that there isn't a good reason why they chose to take X action. So you need to communicate that perceived discrepancy and use two-way communication to figure out what is actually occurring. This is where you go into what is the proper accountability. And accountability doesn't have to necessarily be negative, though most of the time people think about it in terms of write-ups, verbal warnings, suspensions, termination, whatever is deemed appropriate. There's even measures of public humiliation depending on what the offense is. Making somebody perform a little song before they can join a meeting late. There's all sorts of fun things that you can do to help drive the point home. But the key is that you have to know that there's a discrepancy, that the expectations were clearly explained, and everybody agreed to operate under those rules. So let's go into accountability just a little bit further here. So I really love this little picture that's here. It's not accountability, like I said, doesn't have to be about negative consequences. It's actually about just addressing the situation. Yeah, you meant well. Well, it's a broken egg. It wasn't my intent. Okay, it doesn't matter. The fact is that you broke the egg. Now, how can we move forward to prevent further egg breakage, especially when prices are so high? That's the important part of communication is, okay, accountability is the opportunity to improve or to get back on track or to get back in line with expectations of what it takes to support the brand. So if you don't hold people accountable, they're justifying things in their own head. They're going to use I meant well or that wasn't my intent when they have the broken egg, and if they even bother reporting it. Leadership has to know that an egg broke for regulatory reasons. If something goes wrong, you have to try to take steps to minimize the risk of it happening again. And you can't do that without honest and two-way communication. To effect this, to execute on this two-way communication, I always recommend asking questions. It drives engagement, it forces engagement, it forces thought, and it gives you as the leader the opportunity to find out what's really going on or the why behind an incident occurring. Again, sometimes there could be a good reason why the employee went off script. You may decide to change policy because of what they discovered and why they did what they did. So the very first question, most powerful question I can give you, how did your choice to do X help represent the brand? This is a very simple but very powerful question because it helps you investigate negative things. It can help employees express and take pride in the good things that they did, because you can go into it knowing that it was a positive result. Great. How did you doing this help? Well, it helped because I did X. Or on the flip side, why did you choose to do this? Well, I had this reason, this reason, this reason. Okay. Instead of throwing the book at them, you may go through where their thinking may have been wrong, what they could have done, and it becomes a training opportunity rather than a disciplinary session. Why does it look like XYZ happened? You're trying to figure out if you're actually seeing what you're seeing, or if it's a glitch or something else may be happening. What could we have done differently to help you make a different choice? So once you know there is a discrepancy, You may want to do some internal investigation going, okay, what can we do to stop this from happening in the future? What else can we do to support your job needs to make it so that you can do your job without us having this conversation? And then what could be changed to make the expectation easier to achieve? Sometimes employers and managers set the bar too high. Sometimes what the expectation is just is not feasible given what they're having to work with. One example is there's a very popular style of selling where you give 6 options every time, and each option describing it, that's extra time that the employee is setting or is required to spend on every job. Well, if you're expecting them to do 5, 6 jobs in a day and they're spending this much time just on presentation every job, that doesn't give them a whole lot of time to actually do the work. So can we shrink that down to 3 minimum? And that by itself may save enough time that they can do other steps that you're also requiring, like pictures, feedbacks, forms, anything like that. You need to look internally because it's not always the fault of the employee. So, unique challenges for trades businesses. I am one of the few HR professionals out there that focuses on the trades. I'm fairly unique in the fact that I come from a blue-collar background myself. My first job was in the Navy. I worked Gateway Country Computers, Best Buy in retail, Best Buy and Geek Squad in the service center, repairing everything that has electronics in it. These are all things that you learn that people communicate differently. So with technicians, some of the unique challenges, as opposed to other industries, is that they're highly independent mindset. Every technician knows what they know. They're relying on their intelligence, their experience to get the job done. In the field, there's little to no operational oversight, so they don't have the constant feedback, and they're operating on an island effectively, so when they have to engage with others, it can cause friction. Their mindset is focused on, here's the problem, here's what I'm doing to fix it, problem's done. Well, when it comes to teamwork, that doesn't always work, because as soon as more than one person is involved on any sort of process, is the problem understood the same way between 2 people? Okay, we go back and forth, we figure out, yes, this is the problem. Great. What's the solution? It's hard these days to find 2 people with the same solution to anything. So that by itself, as soon as you're involving multiple people, it becomes more challenging. And even it being done, well, it's done for now. When you're dealing with interpersonal relationships, people will continue to intersect with each other, and things that happened in the past could get brought up, new things can evolve from it, or it could be a completely new scenario. And with technically minded individuals and people who live and breathe mechanical jobs, they do have a harder time clearly communicating with non-technicians, aka most office staff, most warehouse staff even. They speak a different language almost. And this isn't a knock against anybody. This is just the reality of communication between different roles and responsibilities. So with support staff, the challenge is, again, is communicating with technicians, and they have expectations based on their job duties, and they don't always understand why the technician is making things more complicated, or they're not following the script according to what they think they would do if they were in the field. They also have a hard time sometimes communicating effectively with leadership, who most leadership in the trades came from being technicians. So it's a very common cycle where a technician is working for a company. They say, you know what, I'm making the boss $1, I'm making a nickel. I don't agree with all these rules. It's just a pain. I shouldn't have to deal with this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to start my own business. Well, they go slap a sticker on their truck. They drive, they're doing great. They're making money. They're serving customers. Great. They say, I got more work than I can deal with. I'm going to hire somebody. As soon as they cross that line and start hiring people and start growing a real brand in business, they quickly find out that my last boss maybe wasn't all that bad. There's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, a lot of interpersonal relationships that any leader has to juggle and manage effectively. Well, that ex-technician boss has to communicate with support staff, which they weren't all that great with communicating with before they went out on their own. And support has to deal with the current techs. So trying to get clear expectations when you're not speaking 100% the same language can be challenging. And then there's leadership. So as I said, leaders, most of the leadership of most trade companies are ex-technicians. There's a lot of stress involved when leaders, that, especially ones that were ex-technicians, start managing a business. There's taxes, there's insurance, there's managing benefits. There's a million decisions that have to be made every day on top of the liability for making the wrong choices. It's exceedingly stressful, which further impacts communication because people don't like conflict. And anytime you're trying to hold somebody accountable, especially, or when you're investigating something, you assume there's going to be a fight because they're going to deny anything that you're bringing to them. You have to get over this as a leader. I wish I could sugarcoat it any better, but that's just the hard fact, is you have to be able and willing to communicate to be an effective leader. So with all of that said, here are some takeaway action items for you. First, make sure you've determined what you want your brand to represent. Ultimately, your brand representation and your company culture is going to be determined by the employees that are driving it. But you need to determine what that goal that you're putting out there is that you want to then drive everybody to support. Ensure that you have the right people in the right seats. Just because somebody's been working for you for a long time in various positions doesn't mean they're in the best position now, or that they have the right skill set to be successful in whatever position they're in. Set clear expectations for everyone. Job descriptions, SOPs, training, meetings to clarify. Bring people in. If you haven't done this before, bring the people that are doing the job now to help you define it and crystallize, okay, here's where we can improve, here's where opportunities, here's where we're doing great, and get them engaged and owning part of the process. Critical. Hold everyone, leaders, managers, owners, support staff, field personnel. Everybody needs to be held accountable for discrepancies in the expectations in as close to real time as possible. If you wait too long, you lose the power of asking those questions because it's filtered away, or worse, become part of habit that you're going to have a harder time course correcting. Deal with things in real time and in a non-combative way. And you avoid that conflict by asking questions every single step of the way. As a bonus, do all 5 of those things compliantly. Obviously, I'm a resource. I can help companies, and this is what I do, is make sure that emotional bias is taken out of every one of these steps. You don't like conflict? Great. Get a pep talk. Let's talk it through and what the actual issue is so that you're not ranting or you say something ill-advised to an employee that may have annoyed you. Make sure you have your employee handbook, your safety manual, onboarding and offboarding documents, training documents, training records. Make sure you have all of those things up to date and compliant and specifically geared towards your industry. There's a million HR resources out there. Most of them are not truly familiar with the unique challenges of your industry, and that's why we do what we do. So that is all I have. Are there any questions, comments, anything like that I can answer?
Yeah, one, thank you for presenting that, Ian. And if anyone does have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments section. But really, just to kick it off, I got a few for you because, like you mentioned, communication is king, and I love the topic of communication. And I'd be curious, like, what's one small change a business owner, a manager, or a team member can make this week that would improve team communication? Would you say?
Really, again, asking those questions, because most in today's age, and especially with social media, people are used to and feeling more and more comfortable with just blasting out their thought, whether or not there's any feedback. If they even bother looking at any responses, they blast info out there and they feel a sense of accomplishment because they said their piece. Well, that's not communication. That's yelling into the wind.
Yeah.
Communication is two-way. So you ask a question which forces engagement, and you require an answer, and it may be uncomfortable or awkward at first, but as soon as you start proving that you're not going to bite their head off if they give you an answer that you may not like or even understand, you can start communicating effectively, and the trust will build. And if your team trusts you, they're a lot less likely to sue you if you step out of line yourself.
Yeah.
So asking questions is the key, and that's one of the roles and responsibilities of leadership, is to establish that practice. And as I work with you guys directly, it's all about asking that one powerful question. How did your choice to do this, how does that help represent the brand?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But first you have to know what it means to represent the brand. So you may have other things that you have to do first, but you can ask questions at any time, right, and listen to the answer.
Yeah.
Don't wait for your turn to speak. Respond. Don't react.
Sure. Yeah. No, appreciate it. And another topic that you touched on, and we operate on EOS, so the whole concept of right person, right seat is near and dear to our heart. And we have many conversations about right people, right seat, wrong person, right seat, and so on and so forth, and just that kind of Rubik's Cube, if you will. But like, from your perspective, when you're figuring out if someone is in the right seat on the bus or not, what are some signs or red flags that they may be in the wrong seat or the wrong person?
So first, refusing to engage in that question and answer, back and forth communication. If they're getting overly defensive when you're trying to determine if they're in the right seat, are they comfortable in that seat? Are they comfortable in showing signs of happiness, actually doing their job? Do they have the desire to be doing that task? Yeah. If they're unhappy, if they're combative, if there's a negative attitude, highly defensive, and of course, if the job's just not being done, those are all signs that you may have the wrong person in the wrong seat. So now, again, not all of that is necessarily the employee's fault, especially if you did not go through an intentional process to put that person in that seat.
All right.
If you're evolving the bus around them and they just happen to be in that seat when the music stopped, okay, that's not necessarily their fault. Sure. We can either redesign the seat for them, give additional training, try to inspire desire to do the job. Once they understand the why their position is important, sometimes that flips a switch and they're happy about it. Ultimately, people are looking for two things. All people share the same two core goals. One, they want to have a sense of control over their environment in their life, just that sense of control, that personal determination. And that's why people lash out on social media all the time without fear of retribution, because that's how they're getting that sense, because so much is out of our control these days. The second thing is everybody strives for a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. We want to accomplish things. If the seat that you're in doesn't have targeted or identifiable successes or wins, it can get drudgery. You can get complacent. You're just there to exist, and that's not going to help a team win. So that desire has to be there, and you have to find ways to tap into those two items. Give them a sense of purpose. That's your brand. Give them something that they can call a win as often as possible. So that's identifiable tasks, clear expectations. Congratulations, good job. It doesn't have to be financial. You don't always have to hand out raises or bonuses. Just an active leader acknowledging that they're doing a good job for the brand will serve a lot of good purpose.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I don't see any other comments in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on then to basically, if you have any questions regarding what Ian went over today, any offlines you just want to talk to him direct, reach out. You can scan the QR code over on this side, and that will go directly to his website and his contact information. And obviously, if you are unaware of who Leadhub is, you can get more information by scanning this QR code over here. But we really do appreciate your time, Ian, and you just sharing your wealth of knowledge and really just extending yourself as a resource for as these businesses try to take the lead in whatever pathway of their growth. So really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Again, my pleasure. Happy to serve the trades, and you can always find me on Facebook. My name is literally HR Guy.
Love it. Well, cool deal. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and conclude it, and thank you guys all for coming out.